Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. It's huomenta in Finnish. So it's my great honor and pleasure to welcome you all in Helsinki for the 46th edition of the Oncology Days of OSCI. And this year's theme is collaboration to improve quality and to reduce inequalities in cancer care and research. So warmly welcome to Finland and to Helsinki, and let's have the first session.
And I need this. And I need it. Thank you. Well, good morning, everyone. Oh, that's rather loud, isn't it? I was paid a fantastic compliment this morning who said that, who saw this microphone and said that I looked like Taylor Swift, which is a kind of dubious compliment. I'm Simon Oberst. I'm the Director of Quality and Accreditation of the OECI. And my partner in crime is
Jean-Benoît Burion, so I chair the board of the accreditation program.
So in this session one, we've got an interesting program. First of all, we're going to give you some news and changes about what's going on in the accreditation program of the OECI. We've then got a few feedbacks from some of our centers about how accreditation has helped them to improve over the years. And then we're then going to focus on cancer networks and the importance in Europe of growing local networks around big comprehensive centers. I hope there'll be plenty of time for question and answer, and there will be eventually roving microphones to come and take your questions. But now, just to ease us into the day, some news and changes of what's going on in the OECI accreditation program. And I hand over to begin with to JB.
So you just started with me with a few considerations about the growing of OECI, the growing of activity following the growing success of this accreditation program. So we have now altogether more than 80 centers that have been accredited or in the process or to be accredited. Just remind you that there are a bit, I think, something like 140 members in the OECI community. So expanding and with a growing success. That is the list of the centers that have been reviewed in 24. And well, the number of centers we have to audit each year is growing. And you see that it's very international. And once again, it's a sign of the appealing of the services OECI proposed with this accreditation. So that is the list of the new centers that have applied for being accredited within next years. Netherlands, Ireland, Denmark, France, the whole community of Unicancer cancer centers will be accredited. So at the end of that year, Spain, Italy. So once again, very international set of candidates. So the demand is growing, particularly in France, in Sweden, and in Ireland. And I want to stress that more and more there is several countries use the OECI accreditation system for building up cancer center networks, national cancer center networks. It's the case in France within the cancer, it's the case in Ireland, it's the case France, Ireland. The third one was?
And Sweden.
Sweden. Yeah. Spain, Denmark, the Netherlands, Slovakia shows more and more interest in. And beside this, we are expanding beyond Europe, and several countries on other continents have applied as well for being accredited. So I leave the floor to Simon, which is much more talented for making this kind of presentation. But I'm so happy to see so a crowded room with the OECI community. Thank you for being there.
Well, I'm the lucky one who's the native English speaker, and I pay tribute to all of you, most of you who are working in a second language. So let's turn to the auditors. Now, the auditors of the certification program are the creme de la creme. I mean, these are the people who do the really hard work of the peer reviews. And let's emphasize that. This is a peer review system. So every one of the auditors has a full-time job in a senior position in a cancer center. None of our auditors are, if you like, professionalized technical auditors. So we all know the challenges of working in a big cancer center and the opportunities of working in a big cancer center. And that's the whole philosophy behind the peer reviews. So we've got 101 of them at the moment, and we train 32 more auditors every year, because the demand is growing. So we provide a 3-day training in a lovely villa in Italy. Here's a bit of a plug. And we've still probably got, I think, a couple more places for auditors in the autumn session, which is right at the end of October. And we're particularly looking for career scientists, cancer scientists at this stage. We've got lots and lots of great quality managers, nurses, senior oncologists, directors of cancer centers, but we're particularly looking for researchers at this time, because when we audit comprehensive cancer centers, then research is a really important component of the work that we do. Trying to go to the next slide here. So the composition of an average group going into an audit is a chair who is often on the senior management team or a director of a cancer center, a senior nurse, a quality manager, some oncologists, and those with a research background. And that is the composition, basically, of our audit pool of auditors. And that gives the composition of who they are. So we emphasize the importance of the need for training and refreshment about the processes. And not only have we had a training course in March, but we'll have another one in October. But because we don't have the time and opportunity in this conference for a refreshment session, which we had last year, we're thinking of planning in January next year a bigger conference in somewhere nice and warm in January, may go Southern Europe, to train our audit teams and really build each other into a community of practice. A little word about EU projects and what we're doing. OECI is coordinating the EU project called CCI for EU. What is that about? It's all about capacity building in comprehensive cancer infrastructures. There's a full talk tomorrow, so I'm not going to give any more details about that. But it is an extraordinarily busy EU action, which I and Giovanni Apolloni, our president, have the pleasure of leading and coordinating. I think the only distinctive thing I will say about it now is the mobilization of 100 oncology experts around Europe who have offered in the next 18 months between 15 and 22 days of their time to act really as consultants and experts to help go into other comprehensive cancer infrastructures, to train, to work with them about progressing and improving in research and innovation in their infrastructures, in their centers. So that is, I'm not sure that that's ever quite been done before in this particular way. So it's really quite a challenging thing. But to have got 101 such experts to offer that time is frankly amazing. When you look at the list, you think these people really know what they're talking about. We also completed, which we'll refer to in a moment, a capacity building intervention in Latvia to advise and help create a roadmap for a comprehensive cancer infrastructure in Latvia with 3 consultants. And we're going to have some talks both from the consultant side and from Latvia later this morning. So who are the Accreditation Board? It's chaired by Jean Benoit, who just spoke, vice-chaired by Professor Mef Nilbert. That's the composition, and we will be recruiting, in fact, we've just recruited 2 more members to that board, who work very hard, and they are responsible for the certification decisions. Now, you may say, well, is it automatic that every center just simply becomes accredited? The real answer to that is no. One of the mechanisms we use to help centers improve is to advise on a delay. So very often, not very often, in some cases, there are cases where there are things to be fixed about, important things like the formation of multidisciplinary teams for every single cancer, like really writing down and delineating your patient pathways for all the major cancers, like your governance processes, and especially in a complex environment like a university hospital. So if some of those things are not immediately in place, we advise on a delay, which may be 9 months, maybe a year, for that center to put those things into place, and then they are certified. So generally speaking, we do not refuse a certification unless there isn't a proper cancer center present. But we use this mechanism of delay so that the management and the senior clinicians can put these important things into practice. We are supported as a board by the Accreditation Committee, and the Accreditation Committee, chaired by my colleague Josef Lovi, now in Norway, previously in Budapest, is to look in detail at all of the audit reports, the final reports, and the step before the audit, which we call a go, no-go decision. Now, as with any peer review, there is no point in sending a team into a center where things are not perfectly ready for the site visit. The documentation is not completely uploaded. So the job of the Accreditation Committee is to look very carefully at all the documentation that is uploaded and to see whether that center is really oven ready, we could say, for the peer review visit. And let's have a shout out to our accreditation coordinators, mainly, in fact exclusively from the Netherlands Comprehensive Cancer Organization, IKNL. They are not full-time in those jobs. They also have other work within IKNL and in the Netherlands Cancer Institute in Amsterdam. But they really do they are the people who, are the engine room and organize all the peer reviews. So a special shout out to them. Now changing subject a little bit to our standards revision process. So it's very important in any auditing system to keep one's standards absolutely up to date and at the leading edge. And every 5 years we go through a full process where we do various things. First of all, we compare our standards with cancer-specific standards of organizations around the world. So, we look at their published material. There are 9 main ones, actually, globally, and we compare chapter by chapter, our standards with them, and we see if we're missing anything. And by and large, we do find that we are more comprehensive, more detailed, more specific to cancer, and at the leading edge than many of those other sets of standards. So I draw your attention to a few special things we're going to do this year. We've already started the revision process. We've been through every single standard, every single chapter. We have worked out what's missing, which was very few things. We've worked, but there are growing areas of scientific interest. So how to get good standards on molecular tumor boards, how to craft appropriate and realistic standards on artificial intelligence, things like that are growing areas of development within oncology. And we're trying not to increase the number of standards. In fact, we've even decreased, you may be pleased to hear that, decreased by a small amount the number of standards, because some of them maybe duplicate or they're overlapping. And we want to be really, really targeted to make the process as seamless as possible. But we're going to do a couple of things, one of which this year is to convene a video conference about evaluating research. That is a video conference that researchers within our Cancer Centre members, you, will be invited to join, and the call will be going out quite soon. It's on the 7th of October. And this is really to work out, what is the most appropriate way to evaluate research. For instance, clinical trials. It used to be the case that we used to say, actually, one of our standards is 10% of new patients, on average, must be recruited to interventional, prospective therapeutic trials. Now, that was regarded as being the kind of gold standard for a comprehensive cancer center. But clinical trials are changing in their shape all the time. Fewer numbers are being recruited. So we have to reflect on what is the true mark of quality in clinical research. How do we encourage investigator-initiated studies, which often have smaller recruitments anyway? They're first-in-human studies, perhaps. So our emphasis is to look at quality rather than the width, the pure quantity. And similarly, the way publications in cancer science are changing. How important is it to publish in really high impact factor journals? Journals over 20, journals over 10. Depends which field you're in. If you're in computational biology or mathematics, you do well to achieve that kind of impact score. So we need to be more sophisticated about how we evaluate the quality of science in our cancer centers. And then in December, we will have a big conference in which we consult all the professional societies in Europe, ESMO, ESTRO, ESSO, the surgical oncologists, etc., EONS, the European Nursing Society of Oncology, and we will just consult them on the standards and get their input. Is there anything missing? Is there anything that's wrong? Is there anything that's duplicative with other systems? And we will try, we've made it a rule, haven't we, JB? We are not going to increase the number of standards, so that's that. Those are the main steps. Actually, I anticipated that rather wordy slide. Just number 4 to say that we will be launching the new standards, making them go live in the oncology days next year, which are going to be also in a very nice place, which will be announced in a couple of days' time. I'll be very quick on these last few, but formation of cancer centers in a university hospital, as we've said before, is a complex matter. Drawing together all the aspects of oncology within the university hospital, within the research institutes that are around on the campus, and usually with the university, to form themselves into comprehensive cancer centers with a really good, tight governance and organization. And so we really do give advice on how to do that, and we've got extensive experience on that over the years. It doesn't matter to us whether the CCC is private, not-for-profit, public, or even a mixture of the two, as there are in a couple of our CCCs. The emphasis is also not on legalism, have you got the right legal structure? The emphasis is on organization and integration. So we published a guidance paper on that, which is on our accreditation pages of the website. If you're in that situation, then please do refer to that governance paper, which will help you, I think, form the governance of your CCC. Also, last year and before, we published best practices from around our centers. And this is just to flag that we'll be doing the process again in the next 12 months, and we'll be gathering best practices in all sorts of fields. It could be in patient empowerment, it could be in advanced radiotherapy, it could be in early phase clinical trials, which can be shared really across this community of cancer centers. And this is my final slide on aspects of planning for the future. Well, we're very pleased, as JB said, to be working with our colleagues in South America, and we've got a talk given in a few moments by one representative from Santiago in Chile, Christian. But we're moving also into the Middle East, and we're being requested for audits also in the Far East as well. So, number two, we're wanting to create more of a sense of community among our accredited cancer centers and also non-accredited centers, spreading excellent practices, offering benchmarking, and we've historically said that the data that you give us in these audits is confidential. In other words, we do not name you as, this is the center that has N number of clinical trials, this is the center that has N publications with Y impact. So we want, or even more detailed metrics. But of course, we do want to publish benchmarks anonymously so that you, as a center, can see where you sit in comparison to the other 80 centers in the program. So when we next come towards a publication, we would again ask permission to use your data, but we would not name your center unless there was a particular special feature which we would ask your permission for. And number three, we really want, as we develop a toolbox for centers, because there are various aspects of documentation, and people say, well, what is a good example of a patient pathway? What is a good example of a standard operating policy for a multidisciplinary team? What, in fact, even more basic, what's a good example of a scientific strategy? And you may think, well, that's can we do that? The answer is yes. I mean, when we have had the chance to review 70 of the best, research strategies in cancer science, we get a feeling of what is really good as a formation of a strategy, and then we can help centers, have the right chapters, have the appropriate foci. Not to say that one size fits all, because it doesn't, but to say that these are the real aspects we expect to see in a comprehensive cancer strategy, in a research strategy. And I hope that kind of toolbox will help us as a community of practice to help each other and to improve. Number four, I mentioned about developing our capability, our capacity building capabilities. Tomorrow, number five, we're going to have in the afternoon a full session on the big EU project, EUNet CCC, sometimes called Crane 1 and Crane 2, about developing a network of comprehensive cancer centers in the EU. So we've been involved with that in terms of the standards around research and innovation. But I'm just flagging that there will be a full talk and question and answer tomorrow on that subject. And number six, we're about to talk about networks and have an example from the Netherlands and other examples from here in Finland, etc. And finally, Europe is not a continent on its own, and in North America, they are doing very similar things to us in terms of accreditation, in terms of the standards for both care and research. And so we want to build greater ties with our colleagues in ASCO, with the NCCN, who produce obviously the guidelines, clinical guidelines, which are used by so many oncologists, and the NCI in terms of research in the United States, which will partly boost the international recognition of our program, but actually it's also, isn't it, about sharing best practice. We are doing the same thing. We're not in competition with them. We're not going to start auditing in the United States, and they, generally speaking, are not going to start auditing in Europe. So we need to be working hand in glove as peer organizations. And with that, I think that's my final slide. So, yeah, it's not that is my final slide on just our values and distinctiveness. I've mentioned the importance of peer review, not technical audits. I've mentioned the fact that all our auditors are professionals in cancer centers. It's a voluntary program. Nobody is forcing any cancer center to go through this accreditation. And we hope very much that we are enabling, not controlling, but we are robust and we can be tough. And sometimes, centers push back to us and say, well, why have you said this about us? And we try to be extremely fair and extremely fair-minded across the different centers, treating every center with the respect and the independence from our point of view that are required. And so with that, I thank you very much for your attention and ask for questions. So there are folk with microphones. If you'd like to shout out, raise a hand, a microphone will come to you. Is there anything you'd like to ask me or Jean-Benoit about the progress of the accreditation program or some of the things we're involved in? Or make a suggestion what we should be doing. There'll be other QAs as well in this session, because we're getting some feedback, of course, from individual centers in a moment. But anything immediately striking your mind? Tommy.
Hi, thanks for a great presentation. Tommy Mäkelä from the Finnish Cancer Center. I noted in the accreditation list of experts who are participating that patients were not among the list. Has that been considered?
Thank you very much. It has been considered, and but we haven't yet put patients on the audit teams. So we have had temporarily patient representation on our board, and we're just about to make another appointment of patient representation on the accreditation board. And knowing the audit process, we recognize that patients would need to have a considerable support to be an auditor, not only because of the time required, but and they would need to be very, very, very fit indeed. To be honest, we haven't made a decision about that, Tommy. So I think we will take that to the board, because we have a big chapter on patient empowerment in the standards, and we do believe that in the best practice. In fact, OECI, as you know, has a working group which is being now expanded on the whole area of patient empowerment, to say, well, what is best practice for patient representation in cancer centers? And that's a big, big issue. So at the moment, we have professional auditors who do that. Do you have a big patient group that advise the board, that co-create new services and things like that, that advise on information and support, etc. But we haven't yet got professional patient auditors. So that's something we could consider. Thank you.